Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Historic Preservation Commission work session. We have 3 items on the agenda for the work session today. The first 2 are just information only. The first one is the treatment of contributing accessory structures, and the second would be the Historic Preservation Plan update. And then third on the work session agenda, we have a commission chair and co-chair election. Mr. Chair.
Sounds great. Let's move into it.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. This is a presentation on the city's process for reviewing historic accessory structures. Our preservation plan describes the importance of our built community. From the dawn of civilization to our time, the great works of humankind have embodied the essence of the age which produced them. Buildings speak to us today in a nonverbal but unmistakable language. Historic buildings have a continuing human significance and are not just commodities which are automatically disposable. The general objective of Boise's Historic Preservation Program, as defined in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, is to promote, preserve, and protect historic resources. Accessory structures can be vital players in the story of a historic site or district. The guidelines explain, throughout Boise's history, many residences had associated outbuildings for specialized activities. Over time, the types of outbuildings have evolved as the needs of Americans kept pace with technological advances. Historic garages, for instance, help illustrate the impact of the automobile on development. In accordance with our guidelines and the Secretary's standards, historic garages and other historic accessory structures, as well as their character-defining features, should be retained where possible in order to maintain the integrity of the district. The process for Certificate of Appropriateness applications is outlined in code, which utilizes various plans and guidelines to assist in decision-making. Review generally begins with the classification or status recorded in the survey form. It is known that the city's survey forms are not necessarily up to date considering Boise's advanced growth. Additionally, many of our surveys are reconnaissance surveys, which means they are not exhaustive in evaluation. However, this is the authority we have on status. We do have additional resources such as previous permitting and Sanborn maps to help fill in the narrative and contribute to consistent decisions that align with the goals of the program. If a survey calls out associated structures such as the garage, then it is presumed those structures fall under the classification that is noted. If a house is contributing and garage is listed under associated structures, then the garage is considered contributing as well. Unfortunately, our surveys do not consistently evaluate accessory structures. According to the Secretary of the Interior, there are a number of reasons why accessory structures may have been left out of surveys. Fear of inflating number of non-contributing structures in a district, structures out of view from the public right-of-way, lack of aesthetic appeal, and/or cost of surveying. The Secretary of the Interior provides this suggested language for when ancillary buildings and structures are not included in nomination forms. While we do not have a statement like this implemented into our process, it does emphasize the importance of these structures throughout a district. As a reminder, Boise City Code defines contributing as a building, site, structure, or object that adds to the historic architectural qualities, historic associations, or archaeological values for which a property is significant because A, it was present during the period of significance and possesses historic integrity reflecting its character at that time, or is capable of yielding important information about the period, or B, it individually meets the National Register eligibility criteria. Additionally, a non-contributing building, site, structure, or object that is within a historic district remains subject to the Historic Preservation Ordinance. This classification has been designated through a survey and a formal hearing process. When a structure is proposed to be demolished or relocated, it must meet the findings of approval. This includes meeting 3 out of 5 of the listed criteria in code. The first criterion is the building, site, structure, or object is not classified as contributing within the district as stated on the survey form on file in PDS. Regardless of the breadth of the survey, we must follow what is recorded for this criterion. The second criterion is it cannot reasonably meet national, state, or local criteria for designation as a historic property. If the survey says contributing, it meets the criteria for designation. If the accessory structure was not necessarily evaluated in the survey, staff can use information and resources to determine if it may meet the criteria for designation. The third criterion is demolition would not have an adverse impact on the character of the district and or the adjacent properties. This criterion depends on the historic integrity of the structure as well as its location. A structure within view from the public right-of-way may have an impact on the character of the area. A structure that is not within view may not. The fourth criterion is the owner has reasonably demonstrated that rehabilitation would not be economically practical, realistic, or viable based on review of the information required in the application. This information is the responsibility of the applicant to provide for staff to review. The final criterion is plans have been submitted to redevelop the property if the demolition proceeds, and such plans will have a positive effect on the district and or adjacent properties. The size, scale, use, materials, and or overall design of the project may be consistent as qualities for producing a positive, may be considered as qualities for producing a positive effect. This criterion generally considers if the replacement structure meets the historic guidelines and other applicable findings. If there is not a replacement structure proposed, the proposal may not meet this criterion. If the structure proposed is not in accordance with the historic guidelines, the proposal may not meet this criterion. A property owner also has the option of applying to reclassify the structure. Reclassification of the historic resources must meet a different set of findings for approval. These findings include a building site structure object may be reclassified from non-contributing to contributing or from contributing to non-contributing if the HPC determines that an error was made on the original survey, or if alterations, additions, or restorations have been made so that the classification prior to the change no longer reflects the proper classification after the change. If the HPC determines that a reclassification is justified pursuant to A or B, the HPC shall also make the following findings in writing: whether or not the building site structure or object is eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, and if it contributes to the historic district in which it was located. In summary, the review of accessory structures may not be as straightforward as primary structures. However, we ultimately follow the same process for certificate of appropriateness applications that is outlined in code. This includes utilizing the survey forms for this status. It also includes utilizing the guidelines and other applicable plans and resources. With each property and proposal being unique, the guidelines emphasize careful evaluation is necessary. There is no one-size-fits-all approach, and requests must be considered on a case-by-case basis. I stand for any questions.
Thank you for that, Olivia. Really appreciate that. Can you give a little background? What was the purpose that sort of, or what was is there something in particular that generated the need for, or this presentation? It is a little bit unusual. Do you feel the commission's going way off course, or are there just a good refresher for us? What was the reason for kind of bringing this up to the commission?
There was a request from a neighborhood association for clarification on the process.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Yeah, and as you stated, it is very much a case-by-case basis. Lots of different things that we look at on each one. Also balancing, the need for accommodating accessory dwelling units, housing in our historic districts because they are great places to live, but also balancing that against what is the fabric of the district, what is the solid to void, built versus unbuilt spaces, and then what is visible from a public right of way, and what's best for our neighbors. So appreciate the presentation. Any questions from the commission? Great, thank you.
And this is an informational presentation only. This is not part of the public hearing at this point in time.
Staff has been working with the consultants at Northwest Vernacular to update our original historic preservation plan from 1979, and we want to provide the Historic Preservation Commission an update regarding this. Boise's Historic Preservation Plan is a long-range planning document that guides how the city identifies, protects, and celebrates historic places. Adopted in 1979, the plan provides the framework for establishing historic preservation as a priority in the city by outlining the background of historic preservation, goals and policies of the Historic Preservation Commission, and specific goals related to implementing historic preservation to help ensure Boise's historic buildings, neighborhoods, landscapes, and cultural resources are preserved over generations. As part of Boise's comprehensive plan, the Historic Preservation Plan helps inform land use decisions, design review, community investment, and long-term planning efforts. Boise is updating the Historic Preservation Plan to better reflect today's community values, challenges, and opportunities. Since the plan was adopted, Boise has experienced significant growth and change, making it important to take a fresh look at how historic preservation works in Boise. This update is partly funded by a grant from the National Park Service within the U.S. Department of the Interior and administered by the Idaho State Historic Preservation Office. This funding allows the city to take comprehensive, community-informed approach to evaluating and strengthening its historic preservation policies. Updating this plan allows the city to reflect updated preservation best practices, incorporate community feedback and lived experiences, showcase the value of local heritage and the built environment, determine the city's future historic preservation priorities, and demonstrate the inherent connection between historic preservation and broader city goals, including housing, sustainability, equity, and economic vitality. The update is an opportunity to take a fresh look at how historic preservation works in Boise and how it can better serve Boiseans now and for generations to come. Historic preservation plays an important role in Boise's identity and sense of place. Historic buildings and neighborhoods tell a story of who we are, where we come from, and how our community has grown and changed over time. Preserving historic places helps protect Boise's unique character and neighborhoods, strengthen the community pride and connection, support local economies and revitalization efforts, encourage sustainability by retaining historic features and materials or reusing the existing building, and honor the diverse histories and cultures that shape the city. Historic preservation is not about freezing the city in time. It is about managing change thoughtfully so Boise can grow while still respecting and valuing its past. Community engagement is a key part of updating the Historic Preservation Plan. The city wants to hear from the public to ensure that the updated plan reflects which historic places matter most to the community, how preservation processes are working, and where improvements are needed. The first step is to understand how residents feel about historic preservation and what it means to them. Public feedback will help guide the city's approach as the plan is updated. Feedback gathered from the community will help shape the Historic Preservation Plan update. Here is the link and a QR code to a survey where you can provide feedback. In April, there will be opportunities for frequent applicants and historic preservation organizations and other partners in preservation to provide feedback. And later in the summer, there will be opportunities for feedback from neighborhood associations and the general public. With that, staff will now stand for any questions from the commission.
Thank you for that, Richard. So in April, you said, so starting, that's very soon.
Yes,
we'll
yes.
start having meetings.
Yes, before the Historic Preservation Commission, there will be a meeting, basically, before that.
As a part of our workshop session?
Yes, it will be. There will be that, and then there will be a forum or a meeting currently scheduled to be at the Boise Depot afterwards, after the hearing date.
Okay, sounds good.
For the stakeholders, the thing I mentioned at first, for the stakeholders, things like the State Historic Preservation Office and frequent applicants. That's going to be the goal of that first April meeting, is to have feedback from that group. And as I said, towards later on into the summer, we will have yet another meeting for the broader general public and neighborhood associations.
Very good. Thank you. Questions for staff from the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner.
Richard, could you please speak to what the overall timeline looks like for the historic preservation plan? Is there an end date in sight at this point?
Yes, this is all derived from the requirements of a CLG getting a pass-through federal grant, and the adoption, or not the adoption date, but the complete date is in September, towards the end of September, and then the city staff will work through the process of getting it codified through this body all the way to city council, and that will be happening in the months to follow.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner.
Yeah, am I correct in that the most recent attempt for a plan update was the one that was not adopted in 2010?
That is correct. There was a draft, and that is something that the consultants and us have been looking through, and as part of their review process, they're reviewing our original documentation, our codes, our guidelines and policies, and all these different documents, and that is something that is under their consideration and part of what they're looking at.
Okay, and
Yeah.
and so to follow up on that,
Yeah, Tom.
my question would be, is that plan now being 16 years old that wasn't adopted, is
Mhm.
the intent to incorporate a large portion of what worked in that plan into this, or are we trying, would the intent be to move, essentially start from scratch on the new one?
I would say that is a document that is being considered, but I mean, of course, the original preservation plan is very old. So, and it was the guiding plan, the organizational, the aspiration, we're starting this thing up plan. The 2010 revision, though it did reflect on more current things, it is in itself now a 16-year-old document that was never implemented. So it's one of the many guiding documents to be considered by the consultant and us. And some of the points from that are going to be integrated forward, I'm sure, but it's not like
Okay,
revise 5 sentences and publish. Yes.
absolutely.
Another follow-up question.
Sure would.
So normally, like throughout these processes for updating preservation plans for cities and counties, the commission is very involved in the process. And I feel like at this point, we haven't been very involved in the process. We've only gotten updates. So
Right.
how can we be more involved in the process, like in helping
We-
with goals and everything as well?
Yep. The meeting that's coming up, we're going to have a meeting very soon about what April is going to look like and who's going to be there. And it is our intention for the commission to be an invitee. We just haven't had that final meeting it should be happening that you're involved with it, potentially. Once we have the draft. Yeah, once we have the final draft, you will be involved in the process, of course. It's just a matter of the timing and whether it's the April meeting. You should be involved in the April meeting, but we're still, I can't answer a question to something that relates to a meeting I haven't had yet.
Do you know the date of that April meeting off the top of your head?
It will be just an opportunity. The consultant will be here. There'll be an opportunity to provide feedback from, as I mentioned before, various parties. The State Preservation Office can be we're going to invite people from the State Preservation Office, Preservation Idaho, and other bodies to be part of the process. We want everybody to be part of the process. There's no exclusion here.
But do you have a date, actual like date in April?
It should be the day, the workshop should be the day after the hearing date, which is the 28th.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the hearing date is the April 27th, and we're having meetings on the 28th. Place, time, and everything to be determined, and we'll send out more information.
And did I understand that on the 27th hearing date, on that date, our workshop will also be, I'd assume, a fairly intensive discussion or presentation with the planners at that point? Or do we wait until the next day and hope my calendar's clear for that?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, that's kind of what we are still determining. So the consultant will be in town for both of those days. There will be meetings held. And then at that point, they will present some of their background research and what they found so far for feedback.
I have a follow-up question. Are you doing something similar with city council folks? Are you giving them a presentation as well and keeping them up to date and involved in that process?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, City council will be updated as we have more information. Again, we're still really early in the process and haven't had a lot of information from the consultant for feedback at this time.
Thank you.
Further
Mr.
questions
Chair?
from the commission? Yes.
Do you know how long the survey is going to be open? Does that close before our next meeting? Or is it going to be open kind of throughout until the end of the process?
That is a better question for the consultant who is not here, but I would say I don't see it being like shut down suddenly at some point soon. That's going to be a running survey, and there may be future surveys in the future. That's a consultant question, basically.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I would just say, having been involved in other preservation plan updates, the process in this one is a little bit unusual as far as commission involvement. Commission was involved far earlier and far more intensive through the process. So I'm curious to see how this one evolves. So hopefully it goes fairly smoothly. That's just my observation.
That I'll echo that observation too. The process and for involving the commission seems a little wonky in this circumstance where we would be very heavily involved in having, more intense conversations about goals and objectives of the plan. So I feel like we've sort of been removed from a process that we should be more involved in.
I reiterate that you will be involved late in the near future, as
Thank
I
you.
did before.
Okay, great. Further questions for staff?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner.
I just wanted to see, so you've had at least one meeting, right, with the consultant so far. Did they give you any direction or any thoughts on what they expect to see come out of this preservation plan that would be different from what was in our previous iterations?
And generally, I can speak to the fact that our original historic preservation plan was the kind of establishment plan that the Historic Preservation Commission was established prior to the adoption of the plan a few years before, 76, something like that. I'm not sure. That was let's set this up and have a framework to start doing this. And time has evolved. And as I outlined in the presentation, preservation philosophies and other things have evolved since then. So the general, without saying anything specific, like here's goal 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, we have vague notions of what some of those might be now. It's not yet to be determined, but what is going to come from it are, of course, looking at where we are now and where we want to go in the future and creating the guiding document that helps the Historic Preservation Commission, staff, and the city at large consider historic preservation as part of the planning process in many different areas, so that's where we're going to get. And I can't give you all the goals now because we don't know all the goals now, but that's what the purpose of this is to update it for the future and for future growth and future aspirations of the city.
Thank you.
Sounds like a lot of work to do.
A little bit.
Yeah. Further questions? Great. Thank you for the presentation.
Mr. Chair, we can move on to elections now.
Yes. Am I running this or are you running this?
Mr. Chair, I believe that you asked for nomination and then they make motion.
Okay. Have any nominations been received prior to the meeting?
I have not received any nominations
Okay.
as of yet.
It would be my honor to serve the commission in another year as chair. However, I am happy to step aside should someone else wish to fill that position for the next year.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I would like to renominate you as chair.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Moore, a second from Commissioner Owens. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Moody,
Abstain.
was that Storty? Aye. Sorry.
But
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Very good. Next up is our position of co-chair. Were any nominations received before the meeting for this position?
No, there were not, Mr. Chair.
All right, I would entertain thoughts or motion from the commission for this position. Commissioner Malloy currently sits in that chair.
Mr. Chair, I would nominate Commissioner Malloy for co-chair position.
Mr. Chair, I would second.
Very good. We have a motion from Commissioner Owens, a second from Commissioner Moore. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Malloy,
Hi.
Parks.
Aye.
Owens,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Moody,
Abstain.
Storty.
Aye.
But
Aye.
6 in favor, 1 abstained, motion carries.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Congratulations. Just turning everything upside down. Let's see. Next up, agenda review for our upcoming meeting.
Excuse me. Mr. Chair, we have, it looks like 6 items on the agenda today. Item A, DRH 25-00103, 2026 North 16th Street is the certificate of appropriateness to construct a new addition and attached a garage on property in an R1C HDO zone. Staff is recommending approval, but it looks like we're going to hear that tonight. Item 1 is DRH 2601 at 502 North Avenue D, which is a certificate of appropriateness to construct a detached accessory dwelling unit on properties in an R2 HDO zone. And it looks like that is going to be deferred to April 27th. Item 2 is DRH 2628 at 1803 North 9th Street, which is our certificate of appropriateness to demolish a non-contributing structure and construct 2 new single-family homes on property in an R1C HDO zone. The staff is recommending denial, so we are going to have to hear that tonight. Item 3 is DRH 25-00442 at 1419 North 7th Street, which is a certificate of appropriateness to construct a detached garage with accessory dwelling unit above on property in an R1C HDO zone. We are recommending approval, but late correspondence was received for that item. Then item 4, DRH 26-00036 at 1724 North 10th Street is a certificate of appropriateness to construct a new single-family home with detached garage and accessory dwelling unit above in the R1C HDO zone. Staff is recommending denial, so we will be hearing that. And finally, we have DRH 26-00049 at 2507 Ellis Avenue for a certificate of appropriateness to construct a single-story addition to an existing detached garage for an accessory dwelling unit on property in an R2 HDO zone, and staff is recommending approval on that, but we are going to hear that today.
Question for you on item A. Is item A just an approval of revised findings of fact? We're not actually rehearing that case, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, you're correct.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay, good. Okay. Just want to make sure I wasn't missing something in that. Any further questions from the commission on our upcoming agenda? Nothing proposed for consent, so we'll hear all other items. Very good. Thank you so much. We'll see you in just a few minutes at 6 o'clock.
All right, it is 6 o'clock and good evening. Good evening, and welcome to the Boise City Boise City Historic Preservation Commission public hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As this item you're hearing is you're interested in speaking on comes up for discussion, you will be called upon and unmuted. There's a chat function in Zoom. This is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. Our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team, then we'll go to the applicant and then the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those who are in person, then those who signed up on the sign-up sheet in advance, and anyone else who raises their hand virtually. If you're attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes per testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in code. Finally, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to the city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. So that's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report and if there is no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few minutes ago with staff, applicant, neighborhood association, and then the public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Malloy,
Here.
Otter, Parks,
Here.
Owens. Here. Moore,
Here.
Moody,
Here.
Storty,
Here.
Butt,
Here.
7 present, 1 absent.
Great. I'd like to start out by welcoming our new commissioners this evening. We have 3 new commissioners here on the podium this evening. Commissioners Moody, Storty, and Butt. Welcome to the Historic Preservation Commission. We're really glad to have you here. Our next agenda item for the evening is minutes acceptance from our February 23rd work session and commission meeting. I would entertain a motion or corrections to those minutes from the commission.
Chair, I move to approve the Historic Preservation Commission work session minutes and meeting minutes from February 23rd, 2026.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Owens. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
Owens.
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Moody,
Aye.
Storty.
Aye.
Butt.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Very good. We have no items proposed for the consent agenda this evening. We will hear all items. First item of new business will actually not receive a full hearing, is revised findings from a case that we heard at our February meeting, DRH 25-00103 at 2026 North 16th Street. Again, this is approval of revised findings of fact from the commission. Is there a presentation on this one? I don't think there typically is, just confirming.
No, Mr. Chair, there's no presentation.
Great. Any questions or comments or motion from the commission for the revised findings?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Malloy.
I propose to approve the revised findings for DRH 25-00103, 2026 North 16th Street.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioners Malloy and Owens. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
Owens.
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Moody,
Aye.
Storty.
Aye.
Butt.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Very good. Our next item that we will officially hear, DRH 26-00001 at 502 North Avenue D. This case is proposed for deferral to April 27th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Very good. To our April 27th, 2026 meeting. Is there anyone present this evening who is unable to be present at that April hearing wishing to testify on this application? Anyone online? Seeing or hearing none, I would entertain a motion to defer DRH 26-00001 to our April 27th, 2026 meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Malloy.
I move to defer DRH 26-00001, 502 North Avenue D to our April 27th, 2026 hearing.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioners Malloy and Owens. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
Owens,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Moody,
Aye.
Stordey,
Aye.
Butt. All in favor, motion carries.
Very good. Next agenda item, item number 2, DRH 26-00028 at 1803 North 9th Street. Now we are ready for a presentation from staff on this item.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. This is DRH 26-00028. The proposal is to demolish the existing non-contributing structure and construct 2 new single-family detached homes with detached garages. The subject property is zoned R1C and is in the North End Historic District. This is the existing structure on the subject property. This is the proposed site plan for the corner parcel. The structure meets required setbacks and the lot coverage is 35.6%. These are the elevations. The peak height is 27 feet and 10 inches. These are the elevations for the garage. The garage is compatible and subordinate. This is the proposed site plan for the interior parcel. The structure meets required setbacks and the lot coverage is 36.1%. These are the elevations. The peak height is 27 feet. These are the elevations for the garage, which is compatible and subordinate. This is the street view showing the neighboring structures on the block. This is the street view showing the adjacent structure to the south, and the street view showing the adjacent structure to the west. As detailed in the project report, due to the heights of the primary structures, the proposal is not consistent with the applicable plans and guidelines and does not meet the findings for approval. In conclusion, the planning team recommends the Historic Preservation Commission deny the application. In order to gain approval, the applicant can submit plans that are compatible with the heights of the adjacent structures and that align with the guidelines. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Olivia. Questions for staff from the commission?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Owen.
thank you for your presentation. Have you had any discussions with the applicant thus far about what the height is that's proposed and then bringing it down at all?
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Owens. This is a revised set of plans from their original proposal, which does bring the height down slightly. Off the top of my head, I think that's by a couple feet from what they originally proposed. So they did work to bring the height down, but because of the heights of the foundations and other aspects of the building, I do believe that the height could be brought down further to more align with the neighboring structures, which are all single story.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Further questions from the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Oh, Commissioner Moody.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Looking over the plans, we've got the 2 proposed houses, the northernmost one being, I believe you said 27 feet, this one right here.
Yep.
And then we're stepping up slightly higher to the southern, the proposed southern building, is that?
Yes.
And what's the height difference? So my first question is, what's the height difference? I see in staff's recommendation, they said that essentially meet guidelines except for the height. When we're talking about height, are we talking about getting both of these buildings down to the same height, or is there consideration for stepping up the southern house's height above the northern proposed building's height based on the fact that we are now stepping up the block?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Moody, that's a great question. So essentially, because they're being constructed at the same time on two separate parcels. It is introducing two new structures to the block and to the area. If this were just one new house on the block, then it's evaluated on the adjacent structures on each side. So there is consideration about compatibility. However, the guidelines do point to the importance of being compatible to the existing historic structures around. That is something that I think the commission can deliberate on.
Great. Thank you. Further questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Commissioner Storti.
Just one question. How tall is the existing structure that sits there now?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Storti, the applicant has not provided the existing heights of the neighboring structures. However, it is a taller single-story home, so likely under 20 feet would be an estimate.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions for staff from the commission? Great, thank you. Is the applicant present? Yeah, please step forward and state your name and address.
It's David Benoit, 487 Grove View Lane, Boise, 83702. I guess probably to start out with Commissioner Moody's comment in regards to stepping down. The original plan for the corner lot house, the house to the south, was to do more of a two-story house, and it was 30 feet to the peak of the roof there, which was high. It had like 10-foot ceilings on the main level and the second story level, which should have been 9 and 9 or something like that. But anyways, it was stepped down, and then the interior lot was then 24 feet, so it would have provided a transition down. And that's what initially, when I had my pre-application meeting with staff, they were kind of suggesting, leaning towards, is like, yeah, you kind of want to break it up instead of having two 1.5 stories houses next door to each other. So presented that, and then here's part of the confusion on I guess where a lot of this confusion lies as far as height to width ratios, and mainly height in general, is that if you look up figure 521, and Olivia, if you could pull it up. Like 521, if you look at what is appropriate in that picture, like that second story living area is not livable. Like, it is not to scale. That picture is just bad. Like, and so I went to my designer and I said, hey, copy this. And that's what we tried to do. But in order to copy that, you've got to do like a 12-12 pitch. And then if you do a 12-12 pitch, guess what? It becomes really tall. So it's just this balancing math game. And so trying to do what's right here, initially looking at this project, started off with doing something that was like Hyde Park on 13th and Lemp. And that was kind of quickly denied that that's not appropriate to do anymore, with a coffee shop and 4, income property units. Switched from that to 3 single-family attached townhouse units, more like brownstone units. Staff, Richard Jarvis, said, like, yeah, you can try, but good luck, and I'm like, well, I'm path of least resistance. So I, just stick with 2 single families, tried to make it as close to what I see here at figure 521, but like 5.21, it's bad. Like, that upstairs is not livable space in that diagram. And I kind of put a ruler to it, and it's like, to scale wise, you're like 14 feet wide and it's 16 feet tall. And it's, that upstairs cavity is probably like 5 by 5. So it's not livable space. So, but all that being said, I can reduce the massing even more. And I guess one other point in regards to figure 521, like that has dormers on both sides. So what they're saying is appropriate, has dormers on both sides. I only put dormers on one side and it's interior to the project. So from either side of the street, you're just seeing roof cavity. You're not seeing a second story living space. So my overall bulk and massing is actually quite a bit less than, that make-believe figure 521. But all that being said, again, I can reduce massing a bit more. I can do what's called a heel, increase the heel height on the outer walls and put a lower pitch to it. So, if I do like a 2.5 foot heel and a 9/12 pitch, that's going to bring the overall height down if that's a concern to staff. And so that would bring things down. And I can probably, this is figure 521 is drawn with like 5 steps going up to the front door. It's kind of hard to see because it looks like a child drew it, but yeah, like I could probably get away with like, 4 steps. I have 5 as it drawn, but I could, adjust the elevation to there being only, 4 steps. So all that being said, I could probably take off to the very tippy peak, an extra 2.5, 3 feet is kind of where I'm at with that. If that, is agreeable to staff as a condition of approval, it's, not a terribly big deal, but just a reminder, I've been trying to do the best I can with this thing. And, based on some of the other stuff that's gotten approved, like I feel like I'm being like the good guy and I'm kind of, getting punished for being the good guy. So that all being said, happy to answer any other questions. So.
Questions for the applicant from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Commissioner Malloy.
Do you know off the top of your head the height of the adjacent property?
I mean, it's hard for me to say. I think I put it in, and actually Mr. Dean here, Dean's the owner of the house. And the problem with that house in particular, it doesn't have much of a foundation. Like it is barely off the ground. And so I'm struggling to make that work. So, yeah, but, and still like, even the existing structure now is, if you look at that picture right there, the existing structure right now is a good 3 or 4 feet taller than Dean's house now. So, and I guess one other kind of backstory, like this used to be a grocery store. And so it went from a grocery store to a daycare. And like, I think I might have had a good argument to say, hey, I can do something like, a coffee shop or something here. And I definitely didn't choose to go that direction. So any other questions?
Further questions for the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moody.
Yeah, thank you for answering some of these questions. And we can see you've been working with staff to address the height concern, which seems to be the main concern here. You mentioned the steps, the 4 steps. Did you say you had 5 steps in the drawing, or are we at 4?
That's a good question. I think I'm at 5, and figure 521 is drawn at like 4 or 5. I can't tell because it's all squiggly. So
yeah, you can see back to the guidelines, graphic representations of what is acceptable. It's not that much taller house. They showed the much, I think there's 5 steps in that, if you can show that, versus the shorter steps on the one that's allowed. I think, what do you see, 2 or 3 steps right there? Is there any reason that designing this with, say, fewer steps to reduce the height would create an undue hardship?
I'll be very frank, is cost. It's a money thing. And in order to keep the overall cost of the project down, so I'm partners with a builder buddy, and he can actually dig the foundation and pour the forms, but he only has 6-foot forms. And so because of that, like it's probably like a $40,000 to $50,000 swing per house difference. And really, I mean, we're talking about, you know, every step is like this and this. So, you know, he can do 6-foot forms, but yeah, if you start taking away that extra 18 inches, then it goes from him being able to do it to him not being able to do it, and costs goes up a lot. So,
Okay, thank you. And as a follow-up, you mentioned what other projects that have been allowed. I'm wondering if you've researched any precedents. The what city is basing this on is the block face consisting of entirely single level homes, and we're proposing 2-story or 1.5-story homes here. Have you researched properties in the district that are on blocks with block faces, where all the other properties are entirely one single level homes, and that city has approved any 1.5 stories?
well, fourplex with the coffee shop is right next to a single level house. So that's one off the top of my head. And this diagram, the 521, it's hard for me to go off of that because I have 2 lots. So I kind of control the narrative, like you were saying before, is building a little bit taller one, then stepping it down and transitioning it forward. But like, yeah, so it's a gray area. And then like across the street, there's a kitty corner, there's a 3-story tall apartment complex. And then across the street, there's also a very massive new 2-story house. So I'm like kind of teetering as best as I can to make it financially viable and yeah, provide something that is appropriate to the district. So
Thank you.
Further questions from the commission? Question for you. So can you provide a little background? Was this a single lot on the corner that has been split into 2 lots?
So this is on 3 substandard original lots of record.
Okay.
So there's technically three lots there that are all buildable lots. You know, and that's why I took the 3 and I'm doing a lot line adjustment to make them 2 instead of trying to squeeze 3 on there.
Okay, so that was 3, was it like 3 25-foot lots?
The corner lot is 30 feet wide. So yeah, 2 25s and a 30.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any further questions from the commission? All right, hearing none, is a representative of the neighborhood association present? Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and welcome new members of the commission. I'm from the North End Neighborhood Association, and I'm Suzanne Yaley, and I live at 1408 North 6th Street. We concur with staff's finding regarding the 2 homes on this project. Nina has had very direct early communication with the developer regarding the height of this project, and that historic guideline 5.2.5 states that it is not appropriate to add a new building to a site which does not maintain or blend with the heights of buildings on adjacent sites. Not only are all the other homes on this block face single story, they sit very low to the ground, and most do not have more than 2 steps up to the front door. We measured the house next door at 16 feet, approximately 16 feet, not 23 feet as was stated in the letter of intent. We suggest reducing the steps up to the proposed houses to 2, like the rest of the block, over the design 4. We also agree with staff that flattening the pitch of the roof would reduce height. Those 2 suggestions should reduce the overall height by approximately 7 feet to a more acceptable 20 feet. We reject the idea that the north house should serve as justification for an even taller house on the corner. The street begins to rise up the hill on this block, and the corner house will appear enormously tall. We'd like to remind the commission that just a couple of years ago, we worked to reduce the height and massing of a project directly behind this house across the alley at 1706 North 10th. Though somewhat taller than its 1-story neighbors, it does not overwhelm them. The greatest critique by neighbors of new build is height. We would like to slow that trend. We also believe it does not create hardship to create a design that comes in under or at 35% lot coverage. These are close to that, and a small adjustment would serve. We're confused about on the front, the stairs are hidden. They don't come out the front of out to the street. They're hidden and come out to the south side or the north side. Anyway, we think it'd be better if the entrances were more clearly on the front of the houses, like the other houses on the block. We would like to see permeable paving for all new hardscape, pavers for the paths, and waffle blocks for the drives. We request good guttering on both homes and garages to keep runoff on site. And you get to hear our boilerplate. Nina would like to remind homeowners and contractors that materials listed within the accepted plans are part of an agreed upon contract with the city. It's important to adhere to the materials as listed as they're part of standards in a historic neighborhood. Changing materials without consulting the city could result in fines, delays, and mitigation at the contractor or homeowner's expense. We further want to remind homeowners to adhere to all regulations regarding worksite requirements put forth by the city. Rules about work hours, noise, parking, and worksite neatness help keep our neighborhood neighborly. We recommend homeowners communicate with neighbors before particularly disruptive parts of the construction process. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you for that. Any questions for the Neighborhood Association from the Commission?
Okay,
great.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. Thank you. See, I have one person signed up to testify on this item, Dean Warbois. Warbois.
Like Boise without the EW.
All right. Well, please step forward up to the microphone and state your name properly, as I am unable to. Your name and address for the record.
See if I can be proper. My name is Dean Warbois, Worbois. I live at 1809 North 9th, the house that's directly to the north of this project. My grandparents moved in there in 1932, and they raised my mother and her three sisters in there. They all went to North Junior High and Boise High. When I was a kid, I used to go over to the Elkhorn Market, which was at the location that we're talking about, and get candy and drop candy wrappers on the way back. And then I moved in 1977, 48 years ago. And I have seen changes. When I moved in, it was a church, and then that project became a daycare center, and it's been added on to. And I always thought of it as the old North End grocery store, but I looked at it just recently. I thought, boy, that's really an ugly building. They've added a lot onto it, and it was not the best in compliance additions. I did talk with David, excuse me. I could not make it to the public meeting they had, so I called him up and he came over and chatted with me about my concerns. He has really expressed an interest in making everything work into the neighborhood. He pointed out that one of the things he had done was set the building back further, and the building that be next to me, it is tall, which I'm concerned about, but it doesn't have a wall of windows. The windows are, well, about 1.5 floors up, but then it's a roof line, which I could look up at the sky from my bedroom window. The more I talked with Dave, the more I got to thinking that, life does change. We do need housing. And I've become quite enthused about working with David on this project. I just wanted to come in and support David and his project and let you know that the neighbor next door is not complaining about this project. I'm concerned about the height. I was 2 blocks over on 11th in the same position. They built 2.5-story buildings that just stare right into one another's windows and dominate that house to the south. They can't see anything but a wall of windows. I was concerned about that, but Dave was sensitive to that even before we had to rethink. I'm glad to hear the talk about the height. But as the neighbor, I'm saying I'm looking forward to meeting my new neighbors.
Great. Thank you for your testimony this evening.
Oh, one thing too, I mentioned to Dave that the daycare put in an air conditioner, which I'm not arguing that they needed air conditioning for the kids, but they put the rather large size blower right next to my yard. And ever since then, I've not been able to enjoy sitting on my yard. And Dave worked with me on that, and I'm looking forward to being able to use my yard again. So
Great. Thank you.
I'll just add that.
Thank you very much. Great. Is there anyone else present wishing to testify on this item this evening that didn't sign up? Is there anyone online? Okay, hearing none. The applicant, you have, sorry, I always have to, you have some minutes. Is it 5?
5.
5 minutes to for any rebuttal to any of the testimony that's been made this evening, or any final comments.
Oh, well, where to start? I guess, Commissioner Moody, you're asking about like other projects that have been approved recently. And the one I forgot to mention is over on 7th Street. I believe it's 1705 7th Street. That one was recently approved, and it's 27 feet tall. I looked at the submitted plans, and it's next to a single level duplex. And so that's probably my best. And right now it's being framed up. So that's probably my most recent, comparison. And I guess, again, back to how confusing figure 521 is. Like, it's drawn with 5 steps. It's drawn with 0 heel and an unbuildable 2nd story living space. And I just told my designer to copy it, and that's what this is the best that we could come up with. So I think that's it. But I guess my compromise is if I am open to the idea of making a condition of approval that I use a 9/12 pitch and a 3-foot heel height, and that'll bring the height down a couple feet. And I can get rid of 2 steps, I believe. So, between those 2 things, I'm not getting rid of 7 feet. Like, that's, you can't cheat the math, but I can get rid of a couple feet, I think. So, so if that's a condition of approval, I'm down with it, and open any other questions, and that's it.
Great. Thank you. Further questions for the applicant or for staff before we close the public hearing? Great. Hearing none. Thank you. So with that, we will close the public hearing and open the floor for discussion from the commission and render a decision. Anyone want to start off discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Owens.
I can kick off discussion by saying that I'm not against this project. It sounds like the main concern that we heard from staff and also from anybody nearby was that it was a little bit tall. Sounds like the applicant is supportive of reducing the height by at least a couple of feet, potentially up to 3 feet, by making a few changes. And I think that would put it in the range of being a little bit more appropriate, closer to the 1.5 story that we would like to see here.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moody.
Yes, so I'm sympathetic first to the expressed concern over the cost of reducing the height down to get these buildings, say, down to 2 steps, as the neighborhood association suggested might make this more appropriate in height. Again, considering precedents, the applicant brought up the home at 17. Excuse me, let's see here. At 1705 7th Street, talking about being adjacent next to a single level house. However, I believe staff's concern here is the entire block face being single level. So we're not just considering just the adjacent property for as the as what we're comparing this to. And what I'd like to discuss is, are we getting closer here? We're talking about 9-foot roof pitch and getting rid of a couple feet. Are we talking about moving down from 24 to 22 when the neighborhood association is looking for 20? How close are we to this being appropriate in light of no probably perfect precedents that that we've discussed that are going to be for multiple story homes on block faces with only single level homes?
Thank you. I was trying to see if I could answer your question. So the corner house in the application is 27 feet, 10 inches tall. And the applicant said he felt he could reduce the height 2.5 to 3 feet by making the changes. So that would take us to, assuming the best case scenario, 24 feet, 10 inches. The house next door is at 16 feet. So we are 8 feet taller than the house next door, if my math is correct.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add a little bit of context, I think in past cases, we've approved in terms of it being close to a single story. When they wanted to put in a 2-story, we did 1.5 story. So kind of split the difference there so that we're not overwhelming with a full 2-story right next to a single story. So that's where I'm approaching this from, is looking more at the 1.5 story. So getting closer to what a 1.5 story might look like. I think there's been some debate around what exactly is a 1.5 story and how you exactly have a 1.5 story, because it usually means not a full 2-story, so not a full second floor. I think in this case there is still a second floor, so it's closer to a 2-story than I think some of the other 1.5 stories we've seen, but it does provide a height reduction that I think gets it closer to being the 1.5 story.
Yeah, it's all about overall scale, isn't it? Right.
Mr. Chair, I would be supportive of approving this with the applicant working with staff to reduce the height and using that 9/12 for the pitch.
It was 9/12 pitch, changing to a 3-foot heel height, and then potential reduction in the number of steps leading to the front porch. A couple of other notes. The observation that the front walks were not leading to the front door, that they were in fact to the side. I agree that's an awkward and very unusual arrangement for homes in our historic districts. And I would support, if we're going to make those modifications to work with staff, that's something else that they look at as well. Front approach, front porch. Generally speaking, I've stated before how it's important that historic homes typically do sit up off the ground a good bit. And there were lots of reasons for that. And we typically try and emulate that, as is indicated in what are actually sketches, to help our applicants understand what the general approach is to front facing scales in our blocks, and not meant to be interpreted literally. Homes do typically set up. However, as is noted, and again, in that notion of context and the houses on this block, these houses do not sit up high. So I feel that there is an appropriate precedence already in place for this house to be lower to the ground with fewer steps up. Just to make those points. If you were getting ready to make a motion or something like that.
All right, Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve DRH 26-0028 with the condition that the applicant work with the staff to change the roof pitch to 9/12, have a 3-foot heel height, and change the front steps to have a front approach instead of off to the side.
And reduce the number of steps.
And reduce the number of steps.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Commissioner Malloy, a second from Commissioner Owens. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens. Aye. Moore,
Aye.
Moody,
Aye.
Stordey,
Aye.
Bud,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Very good. Thank you. Moving to our next item. DRH 25-00442 at 1419 North 7th Street. We will have the presentation from staff.
Good evening again, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. This is DRH 25-00442. The proposal is to demolish the existing detached garage and construct a new detached garage with ADU above. The subject property is zoned R1C and is in the North End Historic District. This is the existing primary structure. This is the existing garage. This is the proposed site plan. The structure meets required setbacks. The lot coverage is 36.7% and does not change from the existing lot coverage, and the garage is subordinate into the rear of the lot. These are the elevations that face the alley and the backyard, and the elevations that face the street and the neighbor. These are some renderings of the accessory structure. The peak height of the accessory structure is approximately 11 inches taller than the primary structure. However, due to the slope of the site, the accessory structure is shorter than the primary structure at the elevation closest to the house. As detailed in the project report, the design is in accordance with the guidelines. The structure uses similar architectural characteristics as seen throughout the district. The massing, size, and height are proportional to the primary building, and the materials are similar to those on the primary building. Staff received late correspondence on March 24th. In summary, the neighbors expressed concerns about the exterior lights and security cameras at the subject property. They request that any proposed lighting and security cameras be modest, respectful, and directed away from other properties. As detailed in the project report, the proposal is consistent with the applicable plans and guidelines and meets the findings for approval. In conclusion, the planning team recommends the Historic Preservation Commission approve the application. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Olivia. Any questions from the commission for staff?
Mr. Chair, since we just had that wonderful presentation about accessory garages,
Commissioner
that garage looks quite historic.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Malloy, yes, it does appear historic. However, it is not on the survey and also not in the Sanborn maps.
And what was the other process of determining if it could be historic? When throughout your presentation, there was like the first thing was looking at historic Sanborns, or not historic Sanborns, looking at the survey, right? And then the second step was using staff knowledge and expertise and information to determine if it would be contributing to the property. So has that been completed? Has Richard done an analysis of whether or not it would meet the criteria for being eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places as a contributing structure to the historic building?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Malloy, because it was not on the listed in the survey form and also not included in the Sanborn maps up to 1956. We also, I believe, off the top of my head, I believe there was a building permit for it, but I don't have this information in front of me. But we determined it met the findings for demolition, which would include the 3 out of 5 findings that I detailed earlier and are in your staff report.
Mr. Chair, I think in the future, if you could include that in your presentation of showing your math of how you got to the it not being contributing, I think that would be helpful for our commission meetings.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Malloy, yes, we can definitely do that.
Thank you.
Great. Further questions for staff from the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Owens.
Thank you for your presentation. I think this is probably a different section of code, but is there any Boise code that talks about limiting spillage of light onto other properties that you know of?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Owens, yes, we do have a section code about lighting. And we can pull up some details if you have a specific question.
Just to follow up, I think really I'm just looking for that there's a different section of code that doesn't have to do with historic preservation necessarily, isn't under our purview here, that would dictate reducing that spillage of light onto the surrounding properties.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Owens, I think it would be appropriate to condition that it meets code requirements for downshielded lighting, et cetera.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great point. Great. Any further questions for staff from the commission? All right, hearing none. Is the applicant present? Please step forward, state your name and address. Like it.
Name, correct?
Name and address, please.
Jeff Inouye, 1419 North 7th.
Great. Welcome. Thank you. The floor is yours for any sort of presentation that you might have or discussion that you might have, comments that have been made thus far in the meeting. You've got, I think, 15 minutes of time. If you have anything to say, if not, we can ask you questions.
No comments other than the exterior lighting. We did put that in place because we had some car break-ins, just because I think it's on Ada Street. It's pretty dark through there. But that was in order to mitigate that.
So will anything that the new structure might do to change light spillage or camera?
No, I mean, we'll fall within code. Yeah, I wasn't even really aware of that. So we can certainly take a look at that.
Be good neighbors. Great. Questions for the applicant from the commission? Hearing none. Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll be back. Is the neighborhood association present?
Hello again. I'm
Hello.
still Suzanne Yaley. I still live at 1408 North 6th Street.
Great.
We would like, well, got to turn this over. Okay. So it was, we discussed permeable paving and good guttering with this applicant via email. And this alley has seen 5 construction projects in the last couple of years. So our usual boilerplate is very apropos in this. And there is a section of the new zoning code that says exterior lighting needs to be downshielded. So that's why we don't say that anymore, because it's in the new code. So, and I could hear the boilerplate again. So Nina would like to remind homeowners and contractors that materials listed within the accepted plans are part of an agreed upon contract with the city. It's important to adhere to the materials as listed, as they're part of standards in a historic neighborhood. Changing materials without consulting the city could result in fines, delays, and mitigation at the contractor or homeowner's expense. We further want to remind homeowners to adhere to all regulations regarding worksite requirements put forth by the city. Rules about work hours, noise, parking, and worksite neatness help keep our neighborhood neighborly. We recommend homeowners communicate with neighbors before particularly disruptive parts of the construction project, especially on this alley where that's had so much construction lately. So anyway, that's all I have on that. Thank you.
Great. Question
Yes.
for you. In kind of thinking of the presentation that we had in our workshop about accessory structures, the neighborhood association is in agreement with staff, as I understand, since you've made no objection, that replacing this accessory structure would be okay.
We try to make sure that at neighborhood meetings or that they have checked with staff. We try to make really sure that people aren't spending a lot of money on a project that is going to get turned down because it's a contributing garage. That's why we're trying to get everything clarified. And further, if your garage is considered contributing, what can you do? And that's what we're talking
Gotcha.
to.
And this
other
one
people.
as a non-contributing.
And this one's non-contributing, so
Straightforward. There we go. Okay.
yes,
Very good. Just trying to understand the neighborhood thought process.
where we came from. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, great. Great. I have no one signed up for this to testify on this project. Anyone in the audience wishing to testify on this application? Anyone online? No one online. The applicants, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal. If there's anything you've heard that is contrary to what you would like. Any further questions from the commission before we close the public hearing? All right. Hearing none, we will close the public hearing and open the floor to the commission for rendering a decision.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Malloy.
I would like us, I know it's stated in code that they must use down shielded lighting, but I think we should add it as a condition of approval along with the security cameras not facing other properties, just to be good neighbors. And I also think when the city does get to updating design guidelines, adding a section about lighting in historic neighborhoods would be helpful. Especially ones where you have like the bright white light is something that you would not necessarily see in a historic district.
Definitely sets a different mood, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So I think those are two conditions we should add to the conditions of approval.
Very good. Further discussion, or was that a motion?
I move to approve DRH 25-00442 at 1419 North 7th Street with the staff's recommendations, with the additional areas of compliance being that exterior lighting should be down shielded and appropriate for historic neighborhoods, and that security cameras not face towards other neighbors' houses.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens. Aye. Moore,
Aye.
Moody,
Aye.
Storty,
Aye.
Butt. All in favor, motion carries.
Great, thank you. Moving on to our next item this evening, DRH 26-00036 at 1724 North 10th Street. We'll have the report from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. This is DRH 26-00036 located at 1724 North 10th Street. The applicant is proposing to construct a new single-family home with a detached garage with accessory dwelling unit above on a property in the North End Local Historic District. These are the aerial and zoning maps indicating where the property is located on the southeast corner of 10th and Brumbach Street, and that it is in a residential traditional with historic design overlay zone. This is the site plan showing the location of the residence and attached garage with an ADU above. Lot coverage is at 32%, which is below the 35% lot coverage per the guidelines. To the left is an existing site plan and tree inventory that shows the outline of the existing non-contributing residence and garage to be removed. One tree is proposed to be removed, and the landscape plan indicates a tree for mitigation. Staff will condition this and other landscaping features accordingly should the application be approved, and the proposed landscaping will enhance the historic district and neighborhood. Regarding the structure to be removed, this site was surveyed under the address of 1718 North 10th Street, and that survey indicates that the status in the district is non-contributing. At some point after the survey was conducted, the parcel was split to create the parcel that is now the subject parcel of 1724 North 10th Street. The Sanborn map and the inventory makes this clear when compared with the current situation. Here are the elevations of the primary residence, which is a full 2-story residence at 27 feet 3 inches in height. The massing and height of the primary residence is inappropriate as it is substantially taller than the adjacent short 1-story residence immediately to the south, assumed to be 14 to 18 feet in height. The houses across the street and across the alley are also 1-story residences of similar height. The guidelines state that a similarity in building heights and widths is an important feature to maintain throughout the district. The alignment of such features contribute to the overall sense of visual continuity along the street. New buildings should not overwhelm neighboring structures in height and should remain within a similar range found within the vicinity of neighboring properties. Though there is a two-story residence, 2 parcels to the south, and a tall 2-story residence diagonally located, per the guidelines, it is not appropriate to add a new building to a site which does not maintain or blend with the heights of buildings on adjacent sites. Per our guidelines definition, adjacent properties include properties that touch, are contiguous to, or directly across a street or alley. However, one could add a new building which is wider and higher than the building or on adjacent sites if the new building is broken up into smaller segments that are more similar to adjacent buildings, and if the height of the building at the street facade and at the sides facing adjacent sites is similar in height to and similar to the height of buildings on those sites. This is achieved by placing the taller masses away from the street and adjacent buildings to either side. If the residence and ADU were redesigned to have a massing and height that is more compatible to the adjacent residence to the south, such as shorter partial 2-story or stepping back the massing in another manner, staff could consider this an approvable result that meets the guidelines. Here's the elevation for the proposed garage with the ADU above. Staff has the same concerns about the form and massing of this structure as described previously. These are renderings of the proposed residence and attached garage with an ADU above. Here are photographs of the 1-story residences across the street and directly adjacent to the south. As described in this presentation and in detail in the project report, this proposal does not meet the requirements of the design guidelines for the residential historic districts with the Secretary of the Interior's standards for historic preservation. With that, the planning team recommends the HPC deny DRH 26-00036, and I will stand for any questions from the commission.
Thank you for the report, Richard. Questions for staff from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Richard.
Commissioner.
Richard, did the applicant work with you on the design or reducing the height and massing at all?
I sent this back requesting the things that I highlighted in my report and requested changes based on that. And the applicant has chosen to continue with the original design
Okay,
that
thank
you all presented today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moody.
Thank you. Richard, can you provide some clarity on the plans here? I just want to make sure I'm reading them correctly. If we go back to the elevations page there, do we show the west-east elevations transposed here in these plans? What am I reading that correctly? Is the one marked east elevation? This looks like the front facade of the house, while the west elevation looks like the next.
Yeah, that would be the west elevation would be the front. So yes, I think that is what you're seeing. Those are, yes, Mr. Chair and commissioners, that is correct. You're seeing that has been transposed by Ms. It appears to be. Yes, the front facade is the bottom right elevation, which is facing west if you look at the site plan.
All right, thank you for the clarification there.
Great, thank you. Further questions for staff? All right, hearing none. Is the applicant present? Please step forward, state your name and address.
Good evening.
Presentation.
All right.
You have control. You have a button.
Yep.
Okay.
My name is Elizabeth Keckeritz. I'm with Givens Pursley, Land Use Council 601 Bannock. With me tonight is Atticus Fall, the property owner. Unfortunately, our architect who was here at the very beginning, he had a medical and had to go to the hospital. So maybe there's technical questions that we're going to wish he could answer, but I think we've got it covered here tonight. And let's see, Richard went over a lot of this already. Do I hit which button? That's what I was hitting. Over and over again.
It sounds so simple.
I can advance.
Can you just advance? Okay. And so just to jump right in, starting out, this is not what we're going to show you tonight. Was not the original design. The original design was completely shut down, which did actually preserve the house and the garage that are currently on there, but it was determined to have too much lot coverage. And so things have been going back to the drawing board, been continuing to be working on this through numerous iterations over the last year. Let's go to the next slide. We'll go through some of these really quickly because Richard did cover these. These are, here's the vicinity location. The next slide, we are located in the historic district, R1C, like really a sea of the surrounding blocks around it. And then on the next slide, you can see the aerial view. This is a non-contributing structure property. And you can see here that the current home and garage on this lot are laid out a little bit weird on the streets, with the home fronting Brumback and being in the back corner of the lot. And then the garage being more center on this property, it makes for a really awkward sort of layout. And so it's really not surprising at all that this would be considered non-contributing, even though the house and this garage are somewhat old. What we're proposing, next slide, is that the current home and garage be demolished, and we agree with all of staff's findings on that one.
Apologies, we're having some technical difficulties over here.
Oh, good. So let's go forward. We agree with staff's findings on demolition. We do meet them. We actually think, as we're going to discuss, we meet all 5 findings, but we definitely meet 3 of the 5.
Excuse me. Can I have you speak into the mic for anybody online?
I felt like I was speaking into the
Sorry,
mic.
I couldn't.
Demolition, we agree with staff's findings on this. We meet at least 3. We believe we meet all 5 of these findings, but that this is property that's appropriate to be demolished. If you go to the next slide, you can see the site plan here. Outlined in red are sort of the actual building footprints. The lot coverage comes in at 32%. The landscaped area is over 50%, and the hard surface is just at 16.5%. You can see on the renderings on the next slide that it is a modern craftsman style home with a mixture of materials, the styles of doors, the gable roofs. The steps leading up to it that do make it taller, those were not originally there, but these were added, and the height was added specifically at staff's request. And so to raise this up to make it more similar to other homes in the neighborhood, which then makes it less similar to the home directly adjacent. So it's constantly that sort of balancing and trying to come up with a development that touches on all the key points, but no one development's ever going to be able to really hit everything and be able to have the steps and not be very tall. And just all of that balancing is really difficult to do. So on the next slide, The findings of approval, we did agree with everything that staff said, except for the massing and the height, which we do believe they are absolutely congruous and compatible with adjacent properties and with the district. If you go on to the next slide, the number one property that the staff has had concern with is the property directly next door at 1718 North 10th Street. That home is also non-contributing to the district. It is not considered a contributing historic structure within the district. And you can see adjacent to it on the right side, as you're looking at this picture, further to the south, there is a full 2-story home directly adjacent to that. Next slide. You can get a better feel for the block here. You can see on the top picture, the tall 2-story home, the smaller blue house, which is the adjacent home, the lot that appears to be empty from here with it we're proposing to construct on, and behind it, the 2-story building across Brumback. Looking straight on in the bottom left corner is the very tall 2-story home to the right, this smaller non-contributing blue house, and then our mostly vacant / ready to be improved lot. And then when you go around to the back, looking down the alley, that corner there is actually on the corner is the greenhouse. That's the corner of the property that we're requesting to be demolished. And next door to it is there is behind the small blue house an ADU that's a full 1.5 to 2 stories tall. And there is someone living in there. It's separately addressed. So going to the next slide. The most closest home across the alley is actually not necessarily a residence, but it is the neighbor's ADU, which is a full 2-story ADU with a 2-car garage directly adjacent to this home, as well as the blue 1.5-story ADU. Next slide. Here you can see how the home sits, and we just got these and we didn't have a chance to provide these to staff ahead of time, how this home sits relative to the home surrounding it. This house is 25.5 feet to the peak of the roof. The house next door is 16 feet. And to the eaves, I believe I had that number at... to our eaves is just 17.5 feet or 17 feet 5 inches. And so you can see that it does fit in with this, especially when you're looking at some of the larger homes and buildings surrounding it. Next one. We also do have the individual that lives and owns the home next door, that blue house, does support this. She's reviewed the plans and elevations submitted for the project, and she has no objections to the construction as proposed. Here you can see the elevations on the next 2 slides, which we were just looking at. And then the next slide. And what I would actually like to show out on the next slide is here the original, we have been looking at and trying to take into consideration staff's comments. Here what was originally proposed and what was shown to you were the regular style dormers, but in looking at sort of the style and trying to reduce some of it, there is this updated eyebrow style dormer that does reduce the massing by a foot and a half. And so we are trying to make those changes, still include the steps, make this a viable home, especially given the fact that surrounding it, but for the one non-contributing house next to it, it really does fit in with all the rest of the surrounding homes. Let's go to the next slide. And then we just did both of them. They both got lowered. Here are some more 3D renderings, which Richard has already shown you. And the next one. So we would submit that this is entirely compatible with the surrounding neighborhood and the non-contributing bungalow to the south. These photos are all from 10th and 11th Street, and they're all taken within a block or so. Like they're all just right in this area. I can't say they're exactly on the same block face specifically, but they're all within this very small general area of the North End. They were all taken on 10th and 11th Street. Of examples of the smaller bungalow with the 1.5 to 2 story homes adjacent. The across 10th is a mix of 1 and 2-story homes. Behind on the alley is the 2-story ADU. Across Baumbach is a 2-story and 1-story home. Diagonal is one of those really big, massive north end lots with the huge house on it, sort of those estate lots. And then there is that blue house directly to the south. Next slide. So in looking at the guidelines, first, we'll go through these backwards. Under Standard 9, the governing test is whether the new construction is differentiated from the old and compatible with the historic materials, features, size, scale, proportion, and massing of the property and its environment. I think 2 points are critical here. It requires compatibility, not congruity, and not replication. And compatibility under the federal guidelines is looked at in the broader historic environment, not just on the adjacent structure. And that's why it says of the property and its environment. It's not just this one-to-one comparison. Second, section 5.2.5 of the historic guidelines provides it is generally not appropriate to add a new tall building to a site which does not maintain or blend with the heights of buildings on adjacent sites. And this language is important for 2 reasons. It's framed as first, generally not appropriate. That means this is not any hard and fast rule that has to be followed in all circumstances. It allows for your judgment rather than a prohibition. And secondly, it just requires that the new building maintain or blend with adjacent heights, not that it exactly match them or that it be reduced to some very specific level. Here, we can submit the proposed building does blend with adjacent sites in terms of overall scale and massing, even though it is taller than the one building to the south. Importantly, and we think this is important when you're looking at the north end overall, the immediate adjacent 1-story structure, it is a non-contributing building. While it remains part of the streetscape, it has been found that it does not define the historic character of the district in the same way as contributing structures. And I think that's really important that when you're looking at this, that you do recognize that this is also this adjacent building, there is no front step. It is super flat compared to everything else in the neighborhood. It's not a contributing structure to the neighborhood. And as a result, relying on this neighboring structure as the controlling benchmark for the neighborhood on why this building that in all other ways is totally compatible with the neighborhood, that's really elevating this non-contributing structure over the broader historic context. And we just don't think that that's appropriate and how compatibility should be evaluated under the Boise City guidelines and under the federal guidelines. On the next slide, we do meet all of the conditions for approval. For demolition, we believe the design of the project, it is consistent with the applicable plans and guidelines. The rest of the stuff, traffic impact, pedestrian landscaping, that we all had no concerns with anything that staff was discussing there. In sum, we believe that this project were differentiated the way it should be as a newer structure, but yet it's compatible as is required. It maintains and blends with existing buildings throughout this area in the scale, proportion, and massing. And we're asking you to not impose this stricter standard that would allow a non-contributing adjacent property to really control what can happen on a really good development on the corner lot next to it. And for these reasons, we would request approval.
Thank you. Further comments from the applicant? If so, please state your name and address.
Atticus Fall, 505 Hearthstone Drive, owner of the subject property. I would say the only comments that I have is we didn't purchase this property as a development property. This was actually purchased for my family. We were building this and working with the neighbors, so we became pretty friendly with the local neighbors. We were doing this because my father was ailing. He was going to live in the ADU behind us. We started this project back in, gosh, I think 2019. My father passed away about 3 years ago. So the project kind of lost its luster, you could say. When we designed, working with the city and designing this, we've already come down in height. So we're at 25.5 feet, I believe. We've come down in the heights with the ADU to what was recommended to us about a year ago. But we really did work with the adjoining neighbors, trying to put something together that would fit in because it was going to be for us. So we really didn't want people to hate us. So just, I would say, consider that in your decision.
Great. Thank you. Questions for the applicants from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions.
Commissioner Malloy.
So there was that reference to the house 2 doors down that was a 2-story house. Is that a contributing house?
Chairman Parks, Commissioner Malloy, I should have looked at it. In looking at the house, I would assume it is not.
Not contributing? Okay.
But I do not know that for sure. I just know I drove by it and my rudimentary understanding of historic, it did not meet it.
And then I had a second follow-up question about there's proposed stone on the house, and is that real like cut sandstone, not adhesive that is applied, because that is not allowed in the historic districts?
So all materials on the exterior of the house will be either natural stone, smooth siding, everything in conformance with the historic standards.
Okay. One more question. Sorry, guys. Was there any thought given to making the ADU look more like a standalone house? That ADU, it's along Brumback Street, and making it look like a separate house than an ADU, because right now the massing of the house is very long, and then you have the ADU. So that's part of the reason I think that the staff has recommended denial, is because of the overall massing from Brumback, and you see that from the street, instead of making maybe that ADU look like a normal size house that has more historic character. It looks very modern in its current presentation.
Yes, actually, our original plan was to keep the existing house. The main level of that house is approximately 700 square feet, which I believe does meet the standards for ADUs. The lower level, somebody made it habitable at some point, but it's approximately 6.5 foot tall ceilings. It's a glorified cellar. So our intent was to actually close off the lower level completely, keep the existing structure, have that be the ADU, and attach a much, much smaller home to the existing garage in that vacant section of the lot. We actually pushed for that. We ended up where we're at now at staff's recommendations. So we tried to do that. I believe our lot coverage was a little high, which makes sense. But the overall elevations were, that was our original plan.
Okay. Thank you.
So.
Very good. Further questions for the applicant from the commission?
Mr. Chair.
We'll do Commissioner Moody. And then
yeah, thank you. I'd like to allow you to respond to the staff's indication that they would be open to considering stepping back the massing on this upper level to deal with the height issue, stepping that back from the street face. So I have 2 questions for you with regard to that. In your opinion, would that redesign constitute just a minor adjustment, or a major overhaul of the plans? And second, would altering the design as such would it create any type, what would you argue would create as far as a hardship towards your project?
So obviously the cost to build all of these projects, we have to take into consideration. So we have to look at what we can sell a property for when it's done, and if it makes sense to move forward with the project. If we move all the massing to the backside of the property, I think we're going to have an issue achieving a square footage for the overall property that will make it sellable on the open market. We are, the ultimate intent is to sell this property now at this point. So it has to be financially feasible. And I don't believe it would be financially feasible if we went that route. Also, to expand on that, same with digging a basement, because we actually did consider that option at one point. If you look at price per square foot on a basement, it's number one, your end product is less valuable and your cost to build, just as David pointed out in his presentation earlier, becomes exponentially more expensive. Digging a full basement there is approximately a six-figure add-on to the cost of construction and reduces the property value.
So we would consider any sort of stepping back to be a major redesign. It's just not, I mean, these are these north end lots. It's just not feasible to get this sort of everything that the city wants on one lot, given the porches, the stepping back, and I know that the staff and commission and I does not like to look at the feasibility, the financial feasibility of these projects, but that is a major component of them. It's also, this is an underutilized lot that's had renters on it. And it just is something where this design, it makes a lot of sense. The neighbors don't object. And it's not a contributing, it hits all those buttons on like looking modern, but being a really nice build still, like fitting in, but not fitting in too much. And with that home adjacent being a non-contributing structure that's already developed the back 1.5 stories, you just have to know that the way these other few houses here have redeveloped, that will also be redeveloping.
All right, thank you for that detail.
Commissioner Moore.
Apologies if you already went over this, but what's the height of the back structure at 1718?
The back structure at 1718 is approximately 22 feet in overall height. And the ADU, let's see,
Your ADU is 18.
Yeah, so our ADU eaves are 18 feet. The eaves, you go.
I'm the one that wrote it down. The height of the ADU to the eaves is 18 feet and the maximum height of the ADU is 22 feet 6 inches. The height of the main home to the eaves is 17 feet 5 inches and the maximum height of the home is 25 feet 6 inches.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions for the applicant?
I have a clarifying question. So earlier in your testimony, you said you bought this lot to build the house that you would live in, but then later in the testimony, you said that you plan to sell the property. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions for the applicants? Very good. Thank you. Is the neighborhood association present? I wonder. Come on up. State your name and address.
Suzanne Yaley, 1408 North 6th Street in Boise. This project is across the alley on the opposite corner of the block from the 9th Street project that we talked about before. We agree with staff's finding regarding the height of this project. As discussed before, this block is home to some of our more modest and well-preserved cottages in the neighborhood, in particular, the little house next door, which I have to point out, our historic survey is very old and that house might be considered contributing if the historic survey was updated. So maybe that shouldn't be a huge point. Let's see, that little house sits back a little on the property. We fear that it will be dwarfed by the height and massing of this design. It's unfortunate that the highest gable on this proposed house will loom directly over that little house next door. As stated before, careful consideration and compromise was made regarding another recent build, 1706 North 6th, with north of 10th, sorry, which is also, that's like 3 doors south of this project. There's only one 2-story house on this block. Everything else is either 1 story or 1.5. This other new build at 1706. So the height and massing were reduced to a more suitable size for that block. The other thing about this block is this is another block where the houses are pretty close to the ground. They've got 1 or 2 stories. So, you know, having him go up 3, I mean, maybe 2 would be fine on that block. It's an interesting block in that way. Anyway, perhaps a 1.5-story design could be considered to reduce the height and massing too. Okay, so we attended the neighborhood meeting for this project this summer or last summer. The meeting was very well attended by neighbors. The existing home and property have been neglected for some time, and neighbors were anxious to have someone care about the property. The owner developer assured neighbors that the new home would meet all the standards set by the city planning team, noting that going against those standards wouldn't be good for business and would be a waste of time. So we're a bit surprised to see a design that doesn't meet with the staff's approval. A NENA representative expressly called out height and massing being a concern on this block during the neighborhood meeting. We would like to see the stamped concrete patio replaced with permeable paving. As this lot was very open previously, it's important that the new structures have good guttering and a drainage plan that keeps runoff on the property. We are pleased to see the addition of several trees in the easement because there aren't any along 10th right now. So that's excellent. We understand that construction and development is a game of maximizing returns on investment, but once again, we see a modest home knocked down for the size of home that is readily available in other parts of the city. The appearance of this block would be drastically reduced during these two projects on opposite ends of the block. Another concern for NENA is the realty listing for this property as having a building permit ready set of plans, which is not an accurate statement of the status when it is still in the application phase. NENA would like to remind homeowners and contractors that material listed within the accepted plans are part of an agreed upon contract with the city. It's important to adhere to the materials listed as they're part of standards in a historic neighborhood. Changing materials without consulting the city could result in fines, delays, and mitigation at the contractor or homeowner's expense. We further want to remind homeowners to adhere to all regulations regarding worksite requirements put forth by the city. Rules about work hours, noise, parking, and worksite neatness help keep our neighborhood neighborly. We recommend homeowners communicate with neighbors before particularly disruptive parts of the construction process. Any questions?
Great, thank you. Questions for the Neighborhood Association from the Commission? Great.
And actually, I agree about the east and west thing. I think some architects do it opposite from other architects. When I started doing this, I was like very confused, and I had exactly the same question with you, but I think it depends on the architect. Are you looking at it from across the street or from, anyway?
Yeah, I would have called that the west elevation. Yeah,
so would I.
Yeah,
So
okay.
anyway.
Great, thank you. I don't have anyone signed up to testify to this application. Is there anyone present wishing to testify on this application? Anyone online? No one online. The applicant, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal and closing comments.
Just Elizabeth Kekritz, Givens Pursley, 601 Bannock, still here with Atticus Fall, the building owner. First, the height. We would love to be able to reduce this by eliminating some of the stairs. The stairs where it would help with the height if we could get rid of, I believe there's 4 or 5 stairs now. If we could get down to 1 or 2 stairs, we think that would absolutely help the height. It would still meet the standard that they want some sort of step, that staff's been asking for some sort of help, but that would easily knock off probably at least another 1.5 feet. And we've already come down a foot from what was originally proposed, over a foot from what was originally proposed to staff. One of the frustration I think here is that it's felt like there was a bit of and I mean, and I hate saying this with staff because I've worked with them so much for so much over the years, is that it did feel like there was a bit of a bait and a switch. Staff was present at historic preservation staff was present at the first meetings, and there was never a comment about this massing being inappropriate, that this being too big, that everything was, this looks great. They were able to get the permit for the ADU. Everything was just chugging along. It seemed like it was going really well. And then just a few weeks ago, they received this information from the staff that they were going to be recommending denial. And this had been in plans now for 6-8 months. Everyone's been working on these building permits, trying to move this forward, feeling like this is more of a perfunctory sort of stamp of approval and that staff is on board. And that's actually when we got more involved, was to try to help walk through this and figure out what was going on. And so that's not saying one thing or the other, but that is sort of how we're to this point where things have been really designed and we are able to come down a little bit off the height. We would like a recommendation of approval tonight for this structure, for something that looks very substantially similar to this structure. They've already agreed to do stamped concrete patio, things of that nature. Addis can speak to all of those sort of things.
We already agreed to go from the stamped concrete to what are pavers?
Permeable pavers.
Permeable pavers.
Anyone else?
I guess the only other thing is, like, we will, our plan is to follow all the guidelines when it comes to materials, landscaping, everything else. It's just about figuring, I guess, how to get this height exactly where we need it to get this show on the road.
Very good. Further comment?
And for any more
Great.
questions?
Any further questions, closing comments, or questions for the applicant or for staff before we close the public hearing? Seeing none. Thank you. Appreciate that. With that, we will close the public hearing and I will open the floor to the commission for discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to open this up for discussion. I, agree with staff's recommendations for denial. When I first saw the design plans for the house, it didn't read as a historic building, a new historic building, and then a new building in a historic district that met the Secretary of the Interior standards and the Boise City guidelines for new construction at all. I have concerns with the current setback that is proposed, the height and massing. We just saw like a month or two ago a really well designed house in the Booth block that was a 1.5 story house that just fit right in with the neighborhood and achieved everything that they were looking for in its design and overall function. This house is going to be built and then sold to somebody, so we don't have an investment of the person who's building the house in the neighborhood. They're trying to make, it sounds like, the best use for their money of building a house, selling a house, and not actually investing in the historic district and maximizing their profit over meeting the Secretary of the Interior standards and the design guidelines. Additionally, I think there could be more done with the ADU. I think it would be a huge improvement if the ADU was turned and would face Brumback and Reed as its own separate property, as a separate house from the overall main house. I think that would help overall the historic feeling of the property. So instead of denial, I would recommend this goes back for deferral to April's hearing with recommendations that they work with staff on overall massing and height, setback, and ADU design.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Owens.
I think it's no surprise I probably have fewer issues with this design. It's shorter than the last basically two-story house that we just looked at a moment ago. It's somewhat shorter. The applicant's open to, again, removing some of the steps and making it even shorter. They've already done some things to reduce what the massing looks like from the street, and I appreciate those efforts that they've made. Staff right now is indicating that their ADU conforms with code, and if it was just the ADU, it would be fine. I also don't have any heartburn about them wanting to build it to sell it. People are going to be moving into it that are going to be contributing to the historic district, even if it's not the person that's building it right now. So I think those are my thoughts on it. I think with just a little bit of a reduction in height, I'd be a lot more supportive of this. And it sounds like the applicant is open to doing that and reducing those steps in the front, like we just asked an applicant to do, an hour ago.
Thank you. Further comment or consideration?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moody.
Yeah, I'd like to continue along that line of thought there with the reduction in height. We heard that that was at the staff's recommendation that they bump up the steps, which increase the height of the building. They'd like to do it the other way. What it sounded like here is that the staff wanted to do the step height to be more in conforming with the rest of the block face. However, neighborhood association mentioned that the block face is lower like the other one around, so there's some considerations there. Staff mentioned that they'd be open to considering this, recommending approval if they stepped back massing, which it sounds like based on this conversation is not a feasible option according to the applicant. However, there are some subtle signs that they've already kind of considered the massing. We've got this jerkin head gable right there that is a subtle massing step back. So the last thing is where staff's base denial here on what we're looking at regard to adjacent properties. They did a very thorough job of pointing out what an adjacent property is, although the guidelines do try to interchangeably use the terms neighboring and adjacent, which could probably be interpreted by the public in two different ways. Guidelines only define one of those terms, adjacent, as, quote, properties that touch, are contiguous, or are directly across a street or alley. Notably, it doesn't say houses, it says properties. So I'm concerned about outright denying building a taller structure, which is adjacent to a home that's adjacent to a very tall structure that also is, by the guidelines definitions, adjacent to a taller property in the ADU in the eastern part of the site for the property to the south. So I'm open to supporting approval of this one based on conditioning the reduction in height by reducing the step count or the step height.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Commissioner.
Commissioner Moore.
Excuse me, sorry. I largely agree with Commissioner Owens and Moody. I think that the applicant has expressed their willingness to reduce the steps or stairs in the front, which would largely bring it to the same height as even the adjacent property with the ADU in the back, which I understand is 22 feet tall. I think that they've done a pretty thorough job of working with staff and trying to square a circle, so to speak. And I also agree with Commissioner Owens that I'm not sure that applicants' desire to sell the property or stay in the property should factor into our decision. So I think that I would support a motion contingent upon eliminating or reducing the stairs or the steps to bring down the overall height.
Thank you. I think I struggle with this one. I think height is one thing. I would, just to state for the record, I agree that home ownership should not really factor into our decision who is the owner or their intention to do something with the property. I think that part of my issue with this is the roof forms are very fussy, chaotic. It's doing many things, and I think a lot of that is trying to squeeze as much space into that second floor as possible, which is throwing off the massing of the building for me. I also think the window patterning, granted, guidelines are very explicit. The new structures are not to replicate the existing, but are to work with the size, scale, proportion, and massing of other of existing historic properties in the district. I feel that the window placement and pattern in this project is not compatible. Our current guidelines, though, are fairly weak in allowing for enforcement of that. I hope that part of our planning process moving forward could be to provide more definition in things like roof forms, window pattern and placement, fences along corner lots, especially, and how far forward we're going. There are a number of things just from a design standpoint in this project that I'm really not a fan of. And the overall massing, perhaps. I tend to agree more with Commissioner Malloy in where and with staff on this application. But to that point, I'm open to further discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to just echo the kind of the chaos of the roof design. It doesn't read as what you would find in a historic district at all, and I agree with the windows as well. That's why I really would strongly recommend that we defer this to next month so they can improve some of these things, because then we're still approving a project that we haven't seen with could drastically change in design by reducing the height overall.
Mr. Chair, I also think there's enough concerns here that warrant considering deferring this to the next one. As in, we've all discussed potentially reducing the height with step count, but that is purportedly against what the staff had considered appropriate. So I think that that's probably a discussion that that the applicant might wish to have with staff to sort of suss that out, along with all the other considerations we've discussed, exterior materials, the placement of the ADU, roof line, et cetera.
Are we ready for more comment or motion?
Mr. Chair. I'm supportive of deferral moving forward if we are going to ask for some change in the design. I think some of the things that we are asking for may not be huge impacts on cost design necessarily, just moving some windows around, cleaning up some roof lines, and potentially changing the layout of where the ADU faces. I think, and a small reduction in height is something that the applicant already said that they were supportive of, and a reduction in the stairs. We still would have the stairs, which I think is what staff was looking for to differentiate it, just wouldn't be up as high. So if there's a motion to have a deferral for those design shifts, or at least to see what the applicant can come up with that they think is feasible moving forward, I'd be okay with that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move that we defer this to next month's meeting for all the reasons we just outlined.
So that would be a deferral to the April, what did we say, 27th? The April 27th commission meeting. I have a motion from Commissioner Moody.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Owens. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens,
Aye.
Moore,
Nay.
Moody,
Aye.
Storty,
Aye.
Butt,
Aye.
6 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Very good. Thank you. Item number 5, DRH 26-00049 at 2507 West Ellis Avenue. Could we have the report from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. This is DRH 26-00049 located at 2507 West Ellis Avenue. The applicant is proposing construction of a single-story addition to an existing detached garage for an accessory dwelling unit on a contributing property in the expanded North End Local Historic District. These are the aerial and zoning maps indicating where the property is located on the south side of Ellis Avenue between 25th and 26th Street, and that it is in a residential compact with historic design overlay zone. This is the site plan showing the location of the existing residence and garages, as well as the proposed accessory structure attached to the garage. Proposed lot coverage is 28%, which is under the 35% lot coverage per the guidelines. Here are elevations of the existing garage with the accessory dwelling unit addition. The accessory structure height is 14 feet 4 inches, which is 5 feet 8 inches shorter than the primary residence height of 20 feet. The guidelines call for accessory structures to be similar in height or shorter than the primary residence. The mass, proportion, and design of the proposed ADU meets the guidelines. The use of a gable roof is congruous with the existing residence, garage, and many other residences and accessory structures commonly found historically in the vicinity and the district. The materials have been conditioned to ensure that the proposed construction is differentiated from the house and meets the guidelines. The applicant indicated that vinyl windows are to be used, but this is contrary to guideline 5.8.1, which indicates that vinyl windows are inappropriate. The application will be conditioned to use appropriate materials for the district. Here are photographs of the front facade of the existing residence and a view of the garage as seen from the rear alley. As described in this presentation and in detail in the project report, this proposal does meet the requirements for the design guidelines for residential historic districts with the Secretary of the Interior standards for historic preservation. With that, the planning team recommends that the Historic Preservation Commission approve DRH 26-00049, and staff will stand for any questions from the commission.
Thank you, Richard. Questions for staff from the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Owens.
Just a quick question. I must have missed it in the report. Could you tell us why this one could not go on the consent agenda tonight?
This will probably have some basis in what the applicant is going to present.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Further questions? Very good. Thank you. Is the applicant present? Please step forward and state your name and address.
Travis Parks, 2507 West Ellis Avenue.
No relation.
No relation.
Okay,
No.
very good. Thank you. Just to clarify.
Homeowner is Pamela Parks. Happens to be my mom. I think she's online.
Very good.
Anyway, I guess to keep it short and sweet, the question is, the windows are not a problem. We can use a different type of window. We can use either wood or fiberglass. I guess those are the two appropriate windows for the historic district. And so, you know, we can comply with that. Our original idea is up on the right there with a shed roof, which we had some upper windows that let light into the kind of small space, which is what the homeowner requested. And it would also add to the just the height inside. It makes it, you know, just seem like a little bit bigger structure than the 636 square feet that it is. And apparently the shed roof didn't comply with what staff's intentions were with the gabled roof. And so we submitted with the gable roof. I submit to you I'd like to leave here with the ability to build this thing because we've been messing around with it for about 5 months now. And we would prefer this particular option, but we are open to discussion and anything else. Other than that, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Just my personal opinion, I think we have sketches in our guidelines that explicitly would say that this is not a form that is compatible with other roof forms in the district. I understand the desire for additional light. Perhaps skylights would be on the gabled roof would be a way to accomplish that. Open to other thoughts from the commission, and we can discuss that in our debate or now either way. But I struggle with supporting option one as compatible in the district.
We did also submit a shorter option, but I don't know that, I think it's mostly the shed style roof which can't be seen from the road. And I don't think this is a contributing property either, but I don't know how much weight that has as we're backing up to the edge of the historic district anyway, I believe. It stops at the alley. And so our original idea with this plan was to match the pitch of the existing garage. So from the road, the little portion that you would see would really make it look like one contiguous roof from the front. So that was kind of the reasoning behind it. It gives it a little bit of a modern feel on the inside and from the alley, so the trash guys can have their view of it.
A great view. Yeah. Awesome.
So anyway, I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thank you. Further questions for the applicant from the commission? All right, hearing none. Sure, appreciate it. Thank you. The Neighborhood Association, who is still present.
Suzanne Yaley, 1408 North 6th Street, Boise. Our only request on this project was good guttering to keep the runoff on the property. And as he pointed out, from the street, you really cannot see this unusual roof form. Anyway, we didn't have a problem with that. But Nina would like to remind homeowners and contractors that materials listed within the accepted plans are part of an agreed upon contract with the city. It is important to adhere to the materials as listed as a part of standards in a historic district. Changing materials without consulting the city could result in fines, delays, and mitigation of the contractor or homeowner's expense. We further want to remind homeowners to adhere to all regulations regarding work site requirements put forth by the city. Rules about work hours, noise, parking, and blocking the alley from the trash trucks. And worksite neatness help keep our neighborhood neighborly. We recommend homeowners communicate with neighbors before particularly disruptive parts of the construction process. I'm going to do a bouncing ball thing pretty soon, so y'all can say that with me. What do you think?
We can all say it together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any questions?
Questions for the Neighborhood Association?
Thank
Great.
you.
Sure, appreciate it. Thank you. You've done a lot this evening. I have no one signed up to speak to this application in person. Is there anyone online wishing to testify to this application?
Mr. Chair, everybody signed off already.
What's that?
Everybody signed off already.
It's just us. All right then. Hearing none, the applicant, you do have 5 minutes for rebuttal or closing comments if you wish.
Not necessary.
Okay. Any further questions for the applicant or staff before we close the public hearing? Right, hearing none, we will close the public hearing and I'll open the floor to the commission for discussion or motion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Malloy.
we have, not that we ever base anything on precedents, because we always say everything is a decision.
We decide each case on its own merit, right?
Yes, correct. I don't know, maybe you were here, maybe Commissioner Owens was here. It's hard to remember. I've been on here so long. We did approve a shed style roof in the East End Neighborhood Association a couple of years ago, and it was actually a 2-story shed style roof that you couldn't see from the front of the property or from any of the public areas. And it was a similar situation. It was to provide more living space and lighting and make it more habitable for the person living there. So I'm in the mindset that if you can't see it from the street, that I would be okay with a shed style roof. we know that the neighborhood needs resurveyed and that shed style roofs are things we found like in the post World War II era. And if it was resurveyed, I'm guessing we'd have a few shed style houses that were actually contributing.
Very good. Thank you. Further comments, questions, motion, discussion? Would you care to make the motion?
Let's see. I move to approve DRH 26-00049 with the original shed style roof, the higher one. As you can't see it from the public right away. And with any of the other staff's recommendations regarding windows.
Yeah, Windows compliant with the guidelines.
Windows compliant with the guidelines.
Thank you. Okay, great. Have a motion from Commissioner Malloy, second from Commissioner Moore. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens. Aye. Moore,
Aye.
Moody,
Aye.
Stordey,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Great. Thank you all for attending this evening. Thank you to our new commissioners. This was longer than usual, but we are really glad you're here. And with that, we will be adjourned.